The greatest war you will ever fight will not be with your neighbor, your co-worker, or even with the enemy outside of you. The greatest battle is the one that wages war in the silence of your own mind. It's that hidden place where thoughts rise like soldiers on the battlefield, whispering doubt, planting fear, and reminding you of every mistake you've ever made. If you lose that war within, it doesn't matter what victories you gain on the outside, because your inner world determines the course of your outer world. Before your hands move, your thoughts have already spoken. Before your mouth opens, your mind has already written the script. That is why the mind is the real battlefield. It is the birthplace of every action, every decision, every destiny. You don't stumble into defeat. You think yourself into defeat. You don't fall into insecurity. You meditate on it until it becomes your truth. Long before you gave up, you rehearsed quitting in your thoughts. Long before you let someone define you, you allowed their words to echo in your mind until they shaped how you saw yourself. This is why the enemy doesn't waste time trying to break your body before he breaks your mind. Because if he can convince you that you are powerless, broken, time, or unworthy, he doesn't need to chain your body. Your mind will keep you bound. And let's be honest, many of us have lost battles before they even began. We walk into opportunities already defeated in our thoughts. We walk into relationships carrying the wounds of old thoughts. We try to pray, but our minds are filled with noise so loud that peace cannot settle in. Some of us have been prisoners to the lies in our head for years, and we don't even realize it. We thought it was just who we are. But in reality, it was a war we surrendered without ever putting up a fight. But hear this, if the mind is the battlefield, then you must learn to arm yourself with truth, because truth has the power to silence lies. Truth has the power to break the cycle of destructive thinking. You can't fight thoughts with willpower alone. You need a greater power to anchor your mind when the winds of doubt try to carry you away. When you know the truth of who you are and who created you, then every thought that comes against you must bow to that authority. You see, the mind is like soil. Whatever you plant there will grow. If you plant fear, it will grow into paralysis. If you plant doubt, it will grow into insecurity. But if you plant faith, it will grow into courage. If you plant vision, it will grow into destiny. That's why you cannot afford to leave your mind unguarded. You must choose daily what you allow to take root there, because what grows in your mind will soon manifest in your life. So stop allowing thoughts of defeat to dictate your decisions. Stop giving power to every lie that tells you that you can't, you won't, you'll never. Start fighting back. Start replacing every negative thought with a declaration of truth. Start standing in the authority of who you are meant to be. The battle is real, but victory is possible. The war in your mind may be fierce, but the one who gives you strength has already equipped you with everything you need to win it. And once you win there, once you take control of your thoughts, you'll discover that every other battle in your life begins to fall into place. Because the mind is not just a battlefield, it is the gateway to your future. Your thoughts are not harmless little whispers that float in and out of your mind. They are architects. Every thought that you entertain lays down a brick in the foundation of your life. Whether you realize it or not, you are constantly building. The question is, what are you building? Are you constructing a house of strength, wisdom, and faith? Or are you silently stacking bricks of fear, insecurity, and defeat? Because your thoughts don't just stay thoughts. They shape your actions, they mold your habits, and ultimately they frame the life you live. When a seed of doubt enters your mind, it doesn't remain a seed unless you starve it. If you water it with constant attention, it becomes a tree, and soon it bears fruit that you start living off of. This is why some people find themselves constantly second-guessing, always anxious, always stuck in cycles of failure. It's not because they are cursed. It's because they are feeding the wrong thoughts. And what you feed will always grow. Your life right now is a reflection of the thoughts you've been entertaining. If you have lived with thoughts of being unworthy, you will carry yourself like someone who doesn't deserve love, opportunities, or joy. If you have been thinking that life is against you, you will walk into every situation expecting loss. But on the other hand, if you think with faith, if you think with strength, if you think with purpose, you begin to see doors open that you didn't even know existed. Your reality is often a mirror of your mentality. That's why transformation doesn't start with your circumstances. It starts with your thinking. People believe if they change jobs, they'll find peace. If they change relationships, they'll find joy. If they move cities, they'll find purpose. But the truth is, you can move across the world and still be bound if your mind never changes. You can upgrade your wardrobe, your bank account, or your outer appearance. But if your thoughts remain filled with doubt, fear, and negativity, nothing truly shifts. True change begins in the inner chambers of your thoughts. And you must realize the power of reprogramming your mind. For too long, you may have believed the voices of those who belittled you. For too long, you may have rehearsed the mistakes of your past until they became your identity. But when you begin to think differently, you act differently. When you act differently, you live differently. That's why you cannot afford to let every thought camp out in your mind. Some thoughts must be evicted, some lies must be uprooted, and some mental cycles must be broken, because the quality of your life will never rise above the quality of your thoughts. Look at your habits. They are the offspring of your thinking. Look at your decisions. They are shaped by your beliefs. Even your relationships are influenced by how you see yourself. If you think you are undeserving of love, you will tolerate abuse. If you think you have no future, you will settle for less. But if you think you are valuable, if you think you are capable, if you think you have purpose, you will live your life on another level entirely. So hear this, the battle is not just to stop bad behavior. The battle is to change the thoughts that birth that behavior in the first place. Because when your mind shifts, your entire life follows. When you realize the power of your thoughts, you will stop treating them casually. You will guard them. You will challenge them. And you will replace the destructive ones with truth. And when you do, you won't just think differently, you will live differently. Your mind is like a battlefield, and not every voice that speaks to you belongs to truth. There are voices that come from past pain, voices that echo the wounds of childhood, voices that are birthed out of fear, jealousy, rejection, and disappointment. And if you don't learn how to filter those voices, you will begin to mistake them for your own. You'll think that every whisper is your reality, when in fact, many of them are lies planted to hold you hostage. The power is not in the noise, but in your ability to discern what should stay and what must go. When you wake up in the morning, your mind begins its chatter. Some thoughts tell you to get up, rise, and move forward, while others tell you to stay stuck, because nothing ever changes. The truth is, not every thought that enters your head is worthy of your agreement. Agreement is what gives thoughts life. The moment you align yourself with a destructive thought, you give it permission to build a home inside of you. But if you learn to challenge that thought, to say, no, that is not my truth, that is not who I am, that is not my destiny, then you begin to break the cycle. There is power in the words you rehearse in your mind. If you rehearse rejection long enough, you will sabotage opportunities even when the door is open. If you rehearse failure long enough, you will give up before you even try. But if you rehearse victory, if you rehearse faith, if you rehearse the truth of who you are, then even in the middle of struggle, you will walk with a confidence that says, this is temporary, I am built for more. I will not be defeated. It takes discipline to filter your thoughts. It's not something that happens by accident. You have to train your mind the same way you train your body. When you go to the gym, you don't expect muscles to appear overnight. You lift, you push, you sweat. Time, and over time strength develops. The same is true with your thinking. You cannot allow every destructive thought to run freely. You have to catch it, challenge it, and replace it. That takes intentionality, that takes focus, that takes persistence. And here's the thing, you don't just filter your thoughts once. It's a daily practice. Every day you have to decide what gets to live in your mind. Every day you have to ask yourself, is this thought building me up or tearing me down? Is it giving me peace or robbing me of joy? Is it aligning with my destiny or pulling me away from it? That kind of footering may seem exhausting at first, but it is the only way to rewire your thinking. Imagine if you treated your mind like your home. If a stranger walked through your door demanding to stay, would you let them take over your living room without question? No, you'd ask, who are you? Why are you here? And if they didn't belong, you'd escort them out. That's how you must treat your thoughts. When fear knocks, when insecurity whispers, when doubt creeps in, you have to say, you don't belong here. You take authority over what gets to stay. Because the truth is, what you allow will eventually dominate. If you let negativity stay, it will dominate your mood, your choices, your relationships, your destiny. But if you allow faith, peace, and strength to stay, they will dominate too, and they will shape a life that reflects courage and resilience. So start filtering. Don't let every thought plant itself in your soil. Some seeds must be cast out before they take root. Guard your mind like the treasure it is, because when you filter your thoughts, you protect your peace. And when you protect your peace, you position yourself to walk in purpose without being bound by lies. Transformation doesn't happen just because you wish for it. Change doesn't come because you prayed one time or because you had one emotional moment. Transformation requires the renewing of your mind, a rewiring of the patterns that have kept you bound. You can't keep thinking the same way and expect a different outcome. You can't hold on to old mental habits and step into new seasons. The mind must be trained, stretched, challenged, and reformed until it can handle the weight of the destiny placed before you. Most people want breakthrough without discipline, but breakthrough requires intentional thought shifting. The way you think determines the way you live. If your thoughts are small, your life will be small. If your thoughts are negative, your life will reflect negativity. But if your thoughts are expanded, if your mind becomes stretched to see possibilities instead of obstacles, then your life begins to manifest opportunities that once looked impossible. The battlefield is never outside first. It always begins inside. Think of how habits form. When you repeat a behavior, your brain builds a pathway. Over time, that pathway becomes automatic. That's why it's so hard to break old cycles, because your mind has been trained to default there. But just as you trained yourself into old patterns, you can train yourself into new ones. The rewiring doesn't erase your history, but it creates new circuits that make hope, peace, and resilience your new default. There will always be a war between what you used to believe and what you're trying to believe now. Old voices will rise up and remind you of failures, mistakes, and weaknesses. But transformation happens when you consistently choose the new thought, even when the old one feels stronger. Each time you say, I refuse to think that way anymore. I refuse to live small. I refuse to surrender to fear. You're building a new highway in your mind over time. That becomes your dominant route, and the old paths grow weaker and weaker. This is why you must be careful about what you expose yourself to. Your mind is impressionable like clay, always being molded by what you hear, see, and speak. If you constantly feed it negativity, gossip, and chaos, your mind will be wired for destruction. But if you feed it truth, wisdom, and hope, then your mind will be wired for victory. It's not magic, it's the natural result of consistent training. It takes courage to rewire your mind, because it often means breaking away from environments, conversations, and even people who keep you tied to your old ways of thinking. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not shouting louder, but sitting in silence, retraining your inner dialogue to agree with truth instead of lies. Transformation is not loud, it's steady, it's in the discipline of thought. The repetition of new beliefs, the constant reinforcement of who you really are. And when the rewiring takes root, everything changes. Suddenly, storms that used to break you don't have the same power. Setbacks that once left you hopeless become setups for growth. Fear that used to paralyze you becomes a stepping stone into courage, because the real victory is not just in what happens around you, it's in what happens within you. If you can change your thinking, you can change your life. If you can rewire your mind, you can rewire your future. Don't despise the process, because every new thought you choose is building the foundation for the person you were always created to be. There comes a point in life when you have to stop waiting for others to change the atmosphere around you and realize that you have been given the power to command the atmosphere within you. Too many people walk around with a storm inside of them because they've been trained to react instead of respond, to fear instead of trust, to doubt instead of believe. But when you recognize the authority that has been placed within you, you begin to understand that your mind can either be a prison or a palace, a battlefield or a sanctuary. The choice is yours. You cannot always stop what comes against you, but you can control how you process it. That's the key. Life will always deliver challenges, losses, betrayals, disappointments, unexpected detours. But the difference between those who collapse under the weight of pressure and those who rise stronger is not what happened to them, but how they thought about it. Your mind is the lens through which you experience the world. If the lens is dirty, everything looks distorted. But if the lens is renewed, you begin to see possibilities where others only see dead ends. Some of you have been stuck because you've been waiting for life to hand you peace. But peace is not a gift that drops in your lap. It is the fruit of training your mind to rest even when chaos is swirling around you. It's the discipline of saying, I refuse to let this situation dictate my state of being. I will not surrender my joy. I will not forfeit my stability. I choose to hold on to peace even here. That kind of mindset doesn't come by accident. It comes by deliberate practice. You must recognize that every thought you allow in your mind is a seed. Some seeds produce weeds that choke your future. Others produce fruit that sustains you through droughts. When you allow bitterness, resentment, or fear to plant themselves in your thinking, they will grow roots that spread into every area of your life. But when you plant seeds of gratitude, hope, and expectation, you begin to produce an environment that can carry you through storms without breaking. The harvest always reflects the seed. That's why discipline is necessary. You cannot expect to have a healthy mind without guarding what enters it. You cannot sit in conversations that diminish your worth, environments that drain your faith, or cycles that keep feeding your insecurities, and then wonder why you feel defeated. You must draw the line and say, my mind is too valuable to be used as a dumping ground for negativity. You need boundaries around your thoughts, just like you need boundaries around your life. When you begin to walk in that discipline, strength is developed. Not the kind of strength that comes from physical muscles, but the inner strength that allows you to bend without breaking, to endure without collapsing, to keep moving forward when everything in your flesh says to give up. That strength is born from a mind that has been trained to anchor itself in truth instead of drowning in lies. This is not about pretending problems don't exist. This is about refusing to let problems define your reality. It's about standing in the face of adversity and declaring, I will not be moved. My circumstances may shift, but my foundation will not. That's the kind of mindset that produces resilience, the kind that creates warriors out of survivors, victors out of victims. When you step into that kind of discipline and strength, life will still test you, but you will no longer respond as you once did. And the same storms that used to break you will now reveal just how unshakable you've become. Because when the mind has been trained and fortified, nothing can take from you what was built within you. There comes a season when you realize that true transformation does not stop at the surface. You can change your habits, adjust your routines, and even modify your words, but until your mind has been completely rewired, you will always find yourself drifting back into old cycles. The battlefield is not in your hands, it is not in your feet, it is in your head. And as long as the wiring of your thoughts is aligned with fear, shame, and limitation, you will never be able to step into the fullness of what has been promised to you. Rewiring the mind means confronting the old voices that have lived rent-free in your spirit for years. Those whispers that tell you you're not good enough, that your past defines you, that your mistakes disqualify you. They've been echoing for so long that you've mistaken them for truth. But they are not truth. They are residue of broken seasons, residue of betrayal, residue of people who spoke death into you instead of life. If you keep wiring your mind to that current, you will short-circuit every opportunity that comes your way. But when you allow your mind to be rewired, something miraculous happens. You stop processing life through the lens of who left you, who hurt you, who doubted you. And you begin to process life through the lens of who called you, who kept you, who sustained you. You begin to look at your situation, and instead of saying, why me? You start saying, why not me? If I've been chosen for this battle, then I've been equipped for the victory. That shift alone is powerful enough to break cycles that have held your family hostage for generations. Rewiring does not happen overnight, just like it takes time for broken bones to mend or for a wound to heal. The rewiring of your thought patterns requires consistency. You have to feed your mind new truths daily until the old lies no longer fit. Every time you speak life over yourself, every time you reject a negative thought and replace it with a word of hope, every time you refuse to replay your past and instead envision your future, you are rewiring. And little by little, you start to see that the very triggers that used to break you now remind you of how strong you've become. Do not underestimate the importance of what you meditate on. The mind cannot differentiate between what you feed it in imagination and what you live in reality. That's why vision is so critical. If you see yourself broken, you will live broken. If you see yourself unworthy, you will walk unworthy. But if you rewire your mind to see yourself victorious, free, chosen, empowered, your life will begin to align with that truth. What you focus on expands, and what you believe about yourself shapes the reality you walk into. The ultimate goal of rewiring your mind is freedom. Freedom from the chains of insecurity, freedom from the cycles of self-sabotage, freedom from the lies that others imposed on you, freedom that allows you to step boldly into opportunities without dragging yesterday's pain into tomorrow's promise. That's the kind of freedom that changes not just your life, but the lives of those connected to you. Because when your mind is renewed, your words change. Your actions shift, your energy transforms, and suddenly you become a walking testimony of what transformation looks like. So do not be afraid of the process. Do not be discouraged by the setbacks. Rewiring takes work, it takes patience, but it also takes faith. Faith that the old wiring doesn't define your future. Faith that you can be renewed, and faith that every thought you surrender to truth is one step closer to becoming who you were always meant to be. And once your mind is fully rewired, no chain, no pinion, no storm, no failure will ever be able to hold you hostage again.